Today is the 21st of July, 2012. It's good to have you with us once again, ladies and gentlemen, as the mess continues. We've had another shooting. Unless you've been living under a rock the last day or so, you would know that. What you might not know is that there's a lot of very interesting things surrounding this shooting, and we are in the process right now of collecting facts, some of which I want to share with you. There are a lot of things about this that just don't smell right, not the least of which, folks, we are 7 days, just 7 days before they're supposed to sign that International United Nations Arms Trade Treaty. Now, isn't it interesting how the timing of this thing works out? You know, it seems like Fast and Furious was supposed to probably culminate at this time. It was supposed to probably bubble to the surface and come to a head. But, see, those ATF agents kind of blew the whistle and kind of blew that thing out of the water. And so, well, hey, we had to have a new crisis. You know, it's just amazing to me that every single thing that happens today it centers around the Hegelian dialectic.
Certainly does. Creating
the crisis to facilitate the change, to condition the public into accepting changes that they wouldn't ordinarily accept. There were, at the very least, we should ask some questions here. Now, the shooter, of course, it happened in Aurora, Colorado, yesterday, at a movie theater just after midnight, I guess. The shooter's name was James Holmes. Fox News described this as the deadliest shooting since the Fort Hood massacre in 2009. You remember the Fort Hood massacre? That was the one where Nidal Hassan went on his shooting spree, I believe, and we chronicled that at the time. There were a number of oddities, a number of strange things that were happening around that. Not the least of which is Anwar al-Awlaki. They said that Anwar al-Awlaki was advising Nidal Hassan. And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't remember the name, Anwar al-Awlaki was the so-called terrorist that was having dinner with the Pentagon brass just a few months after 9/11. And they blamed 9/11 on Anwar al-Awlaki. We have a Fox News report that he was having dinner with Pentagon brass just a few months after 9/11, of which they blame him for. Okay, he had connections with Nidal Hassan, so I just thought it was interesting that Fox News brought up the Fort Hood massacre. But anyway, fast forwarding to today, this movie was called The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight, K-N-I-G-H-T, Rises. Now, John in Tennessee had called me yesterday and asked me to look up the word Aurora. Now, it's kind of interesting, and this is one of those things that you have to at least put in the back of your mind, or at least consider. The town's name, Aurora, literally means the ancient Roman goddess of the dawn. Dark Knight Rises? Goddess of the dawn? I mean, are they telling, is this some kind of dark Masonic message? You know, ladies and gentlemen, we know that they operate on symbols. And this is the point. They communicate with each other with symbols. It's almost like it's a part of their religion or something. They incorporate these symbols into everything they do.
It's very true, Darren.
And here you have another example of this. There were 12 people killed. Now, I believe most of these mind control shooters, they usually shoot themselves. Okay, in this case, this one didn't. He was arrested before he shot himself. I'm assuming that he was supposed to shoot himself. If he had, the number would have been 13 casualties. Now, we've gone on and on and on this show ad nauseum about the number 13. It's a high Masonic number. All right, now we're going to get into some more of that was kind of the more circumstantial stuff, I guess, the symbolism. Warner Brothers showed a preview of the movie Gangster Squad. This is really interesting, Nancy. It was a movie trailer from the movie Gangster Squad, many of which, now originally Nikki Fink of Deadline Hollywood was reporting that this was paired with this movie, The Dark Knight Rises. But Gangster Squad, it actually wasn't paired, but they did request, the studio did request that theaters play this with this Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises. Now, in Gangster Squad, it featured a scene with a gangster shooting up a theater. Now, what are the odds? And now the other interesting thing is, I went to try to find this on YouTube. And do you know that every single place on YouTube they have scrubbed this? It's blocked. At least it says it's blocked in our country. You can't. I encourage you listeners to go out and try to find it. Try to watch this on. Put in Gangster Squad trailer on YouTube. If you can find it, send me the link, because she actually linked to it. Nikki Fink did, so I know the video was there, because she wouldn't have linked to a dead video. But it's been scrubbed. It's gone. You can't find it. Now, the question I got here, Nancy, is, was the movie trailer showing the gangster shooting up a theater, was it played at the very theater where James Holmes went on a shooting spree?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and in fact, it was widely reported that people in the theater thought that the shooting was a part of a publicity stunt.
Darren, is it not true that the shooter came through an emergency exit?
Yeah, it is true. That was actually reported in more than one place. One more thing, though, before we move on to that, there's one other thing that I wanted to address here. The Associated Press actually reported, Nancy, that the actual plot of the movie reveals parallels the real event, apparently. I'm going to quote here from one of their articles. They say, Bruce Wayne's drive. Now, Bruce Wayne, I guess, from what I gather, and I'm not into Batman movies, so I don't watch, but apparently Bruce Wayne is the guy who is Batman, okay? That's what I'm gathering. Anyway, they say Bruce Wayne's drive to become Batman arose from witnessing the death of his parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne, at the hands of a small-time criminal, Joe Chill, who shot and killed them after they had left the movie theater. Huh. Now, there are other parallels that they got in there, and we'll explore those if we have time. But now, as you mentioned, the Daily Mail out of the UK, and I think there were other media outlets as well, so apparently this is not exclusive to them, but they reported that the shooter entered in through a theater, he entered the theater through an emergency exit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to go to your local theater and try to get in through an emergency exit. Try to do this. Daily Mail out of the UK yesterday, quote, "This is the trail of blood left running from the door of the Colorado cinema where a dropout PhD student killed 12 and wounded 59 in a shooting spree. An AR-15 assault rifle can be seen discarded at the emergency exit of the cinema, where 24-year-old James Holmes is said to have stormed into the theater and begun shooting," unquote. Now, this raises some very interesting questions, Nancy.
Indeed,
how did the shooter get into the emergency exit? Did he have an accomplice? Was there a second shooter? You know, I think we have to ask
Who lets someone into a door that doesn't even have a door handle from the outside?
Here's the thing about this, okay? And this is one of the most disturbing things about this whole thing to me, okay? They said he had purchased a ticket, but yet he entered in through the emergency exit? Who was the ticket for? Certainly he didn't need it because he went through the emergency exit. Is there another shooter? Is there an accomplice? Why isn't anybody else asking these questions in the media? Some people are probably afraid of being called conspiracy kooks and nutcases. Folks, I don't really care about all that. I mean, the point is we have to ask the tough questions, and those people that understand how these people operate with their symbolisms and their Luciferian ideas. I mean, when you study this long enough, it sounds crazy, it sounds lunatic. to be talking about this until you've studied it long enough to see how these characters operate. There is a pattern. There's a way that they do this. By the way, I want to share with you, Dan at the network just gave me the link. There is a link, and I encourage you to go watch it now if you want to see the trailer. He happened to find the trailer to the movie Gangster Squad. I highly encourage you to go watch it now. If you go to Google and Google The Gangster Squad Hollywood Gossip. It was working as of 17 after the hour. Now, it's been scrubbed, as I said, from YouTube. I must have clicked like 20 links yesterday to try to watch this thing because I wanted to see what was in it. This is, again, the movie trailer that was playing at many theaters across North America as of yesterday, before yesterday, which was advertising the movie Gangster Squad, but it showed a scene where the gangster shot up a movie theater. And I wanted to see this to see how the events portrayed in the trailer paralleled with the real-life event. And I haven't been able to find it. And as I said, complete scrubbing of YouTube. It was blocked, at least in the United States. Now, other countries, maybe, I know we have listeners in other countries, maybe you can possibly access it, but I couldn't. So if you go and Google The Gangster Squad Hollywood Gossip, you should be able to find a page where you can see the trailer. Do it now if you want to see it, because chances are it may not be there for long. I know we have a few callers on the line. Just hang with us. I'll get to you as quickly as we can. I want to get through some of this other stuff, though. As we said before the break, the shooter entered in through an emergency exit. The question I have is, was there a second shooter? Because we know from various media reports there was a ticket that was purchased, which would imply to me that there was somebody on the inside who opened the door for him and let him into the theater. Now, we know that mind-controlled shooters often have military connections. In this case, Lori Price reported that the shooter's father, actually Robert M. Holmes, authored U.S. Navy military reports. It was also reported by the Daily Mail out of the UK that the shooter listened to one techno song on repeat before shooting. Now, the question I got is, was this his trigger? Was he programmed? Was he an MK Ultra type programmed individual, mind controlled? We know that, in fact, going into it, a lot of these shooters, they exhibit these types of characteristics. And when we talk about, for those new listeners who don't understand mind control, the CIA experimented with this back, what was it, Nancy, the 1950s and 60s? Yes. Where they inflicted tremendous amounts of pain. They used drugs. They used various means of torture to fragment the minds of their testees, so that they could program certain alters. They fragmented their minds into, multiple personalities. And they learned through their experimentation that they could program certain parts of the brain, certain compartments, to carry information. And the person who was the victim, I would say, their testee, wouldn't even necessarily know they're carrying the information. They wouldn't even necessarily know that they had been instructed to do certain things until something triggered that alter to manifest itself, and then they would go and... So this way, somebody, like in a war-type situation, could be captured, could be tortured by the enemy. They wouldn't reveal any information that was confidential. And maybe even a person who was a part of an enemy army could be captured and tortured into multiple personalities and programmed to go back when he went back to his camp to turn on his fellow soldiers. So, I mean, there were uses, and this is very diabolical and very evil, but we know that these types of things, I mean, this is declassified. This is information that we know. I mean, you can get some of these documents online. I've read them. And I would just caution you, in the coming days, you better look out for copycat shooters, because this always seems to be the pattern. When we see one of these things, there are always a number of copycats, I think a number of unstable people out there that are just ready to go off. And when they see something like this, it suggests to them, whether real or orchestrated, that, hey, now's the time, Anyway, the point is, folks, we have to ask these questions. We have to explore these things. And I want to get to your phone calls as quickly as we can, so I want to get through this. Now, before the break, we were talking about mind-controlled shooters. And one of the things that jumped out at me in the media was the fact that they said the shooter was listening to one techno song on repeat before shooting. He left it going in his apartment, but he was listening to it. Evidently, it's still going, because I guess the police still haven't been able to enter into his apartment, because he's got the whole place booby-trapped. Now, quoting from the Daily Mail out of the UK, they say Holmes, who had been working towards his Ph.D. for a year before dropping out, had one techno song blaring from his stereo in the hours before the massacre and left the music on repeat in his booby-trapped apartment as he departed to commit the massacre. And I asked the question before the break, was this techno song an MK Ultra type trigger for him to carry out his massacre? I don't know. Just asking the questions. He was living. Another interesting fact is that he was living in Colorado, but he had Tennessee license plates. As he said, another point, as we said, he had been working toward his Ph.D. for a year. Then he dropped out. At a press conference, it was mentioned that Holmes completed his degree with the highest honors, and that he was at the top of the top in the neuroscience field. L.A. Times quotes one of his classmates as saying, in high school, I guess, that he was really smart. So this guy was not a sloth. He was a full-time student, yet nobody knew him. Neighbors at the university housing in Denver described him as a recluse who kept to himself. One student said nobody knew him. No one. So you put that with the idea that he had Tennessee license plates, makes you kind of wonder if, well, is it even the same guy? I don't know. I mean, you have to ask the questions. They said he was in full riot gear. He looked like he was from a SWAT team, according to witness Jennifer Seeger, who said that on MSNBC. She also said, actually CNN interviewed her as well. They said that shooter was dressed from head to toe in SWAT gear with Kevlar. He looked like one of the cops. That was really confusing to us. Now, this guy was unemployed. As we said, he was struggling to find work. He was collecting unemployment. Now, Nancy, how does a jobless former student, how is he able to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on a full-blown military arsenal?
Interesting. And why would somebody with high honors in a Ph.D. program, number one, be unemployed? Because the university would employ him immediately if he was that bright to keep him.
Well, this is certainly
why would
a guy.
He drop out?
This is certainly a guy that evidently had a future ahead of him.
Darren, I read something interesting too. When they went to apparently talk to his parents, his father had been kind of high up in the military, and they immediately took his father away. And the mother just said, we don't know. They simply detained the father. And so, yeah, there's a lot of very, very interesting things going on here.
Yeah, now CBS out of New York, they said, quote, the latest developments include the fact that Holmes legally possessed 4 guns. They made it a point of saying he legally possessed everything that he had, which is some of which was bought from a local gun shop, and thousands of rounds of ammunition, which he purchased online. Oates told reporters Friday night, and that was, I guess Oates was the police. Anyway, all of them were purchased in the last 60 days. Everything he had evidently was purchased in the last 60 days. And again, where did he get the money for all of this? If he was an unemployed student, former student, authorities said that after rigorous efforts earlier Friday, they will They will on Saturday resume their attempt to enter Holmes' apartments, which Oates said appears to be filled with wires, tripwires, jars of ammunition, jars full of liquid, and things that look like mortar rounds. This Oates guy says, I personally have never seen anything like what the pictures show us is in there. But that was from a CBS News story with a headline, Aurora Police Chief. Suspects' guns and ammunitions all legally purchased, or all legally possessed. So here you have the fix, Nancy.
Yeah.
Here you have the message to everyone. It seems to me like wasn't Bill Clinton involved in the Brady Bill? Wasn't there a Brady Bill passed that said that you had to have a background check in order to purchase firearms? Well, didn't that work out really well in this situation? And folks, that's proof once again that gun control laws don't work. They will never work. I don't know. I think we should go to some of these calls now. Alvis, he's in Alabama. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing, Darren?
You were the one yesterday when you called me. You told me about this situation with the shooter in the door, getting into the emergency exit. And that's probably...
Actually, Darren, there is a problem with that because they've already changed their story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They already have changed the story on the whole thing. Now they're saying he come in through the front door. He didn't come in through the exit door now. He come in through the front door. That's what they're saying now.
Well, isn't that interesting? Let's go to Tennessee and talk to John. John, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Darren. Story's been changed. The latest is that came in through the front, sat down and watched the movie for a few minutes, left through the emergency exit, propped the door open, and returned. But like everything else, Darren, the story has changed numerous times. Originally, 12 killed, 20 injured. Then it's 12 killed, 70 injured. The latest I heard is 12 killed, 50 injured. What's amazing, Nancy and Darren, is this guy by no means was unintelligent. He was an honor student in the neuroscience department. He didn't, originally he dropped out. Now he was removed, and his ability to enter the building had been revoked. Apparently, if he had a passive key system, they took the card away. So he was unable. He was in the process of withdrawing. From what I'm gathering, Darren, it wasn't that he necessarily wanted to be withdrawn. They removed him. So you got to ask yourself, and you and I talked about this yesterday. Folks that listen to RBN know I look at moon phases. The night of the shooting was what's called a new moon. When you go to Wicca, when you go to find the significance of a new moon, you find out that it's also called the dark moon, Nancy. And the dark moon, at the premiere of The Dark Knight Rises, now granted it's K-N-I-G-H-T, I believe the Dark Knight would be Batman. On the dark moon night, in the city called Aurora, which is a Roman goddess of the dawn, there's too much going on, people, to believe that this guy wasn't either controlled, wasn't a MK Ultra participant, either in willingly or unwillingly participating in mind control experimentation. Neuroscience, Darren, is not psychology. It's not psychiatry. It is a study of what causes the mind to operate, the mechanical, electrical workings of the human brain. That's neuroscience. So they're trying...
Are they telling us that he's a mind control victim, John?
Well, I believe that they are. And the news is either ignorant of it, or they're ignoring it, or they're complicit in revealing the facts, but that's all they're doing. They're scratching the surface. They don't want to dig. They don't want to tell people. They don't want to let people know what's really going on. And
of course. Well, that's why we have RBN. That's why we have alternative truth networks. And again, folks, a lot of this stuff sounds like crackpot ideas. If you're not a frequent listener, and you don't understand how this whole symbolism stuff works and how MK Ultra works, I just encourage you to stay tuned and keep listening, because in time, if you pay attention and listen with an open mind, and at least explore the issues that we talk about here, you'll learn. But John, I appreciate.
One more thing, if I can. Our memories are short. Do you remember what was in the news just prior? In fact, the day of the Virginia Tech attacks, it was gun control in Washington. Now here we are, a week out from a vote on an international arms treaty, and we have a multi-murder in the city named after the Roman goddess of the dawn.
The dawn. What is it a dawn of? Dawn of the dark night. Isn't that
all right? Appreciate it.
Very chilling. Thank you so much. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Arizona and talk to Scott. Scott, you're on the air.
Hi. My question is those emergency exit doors all have alarms on them. So when you open up the door, the alarm goes off.
I was thinking about that myself. You know, if the emergency exit was accessed, and now of course they've conveniently changed that now because maybe some other people started asking questions.
Yeah, how come alarms didn't go off?
Exactly.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, and I appreciate that. That's absolutely right. And see, folks, here's the thing. If they have to tell the truth, 20 different ways, why does the story keep changing? Either he went through the emergency exit or he went through the front entrance. Which is it? Why does the story change? It seems like facts, there's an old saying, Nancy, that says facts are stubborn things. You can't treat facts like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, facts are facts. And, certainly erroneous numbers as far as the numbers of injured or whatever, that could be, that can change because as you learn more information. But generally, the basic story should stay the same. He entered through the emergency exit. Okay, what's difficult about this to figure out? Either he did or he didn't. There were certainly enough witnesses, were there not? And here's the other thing. He set off a smoke bomb in the theater before he started shooting. Now, was this to cover the possibility that there was a second shooter? So nobody would see the second shooter? I don't know. I don't want to assume. I'm just asking questions here. Let's go to Brooklyn and talk to Tom. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, folks. Yeah, we're in a real manufactured media event here, aren't we?
I think so.
If we were going down the lone shooter's path, and I was this guy from Brooklyn that was really, really angry, you would buy a ticket, walk through, sit down, watch the movie for a little while, and then, go out the emergency exit, tape it, and which was conveniently not working because before you set up for the big picture, you set up the scenery. The scenery was already set up for this guy. Another situation is they made a really big deal about legally possess this and legally possess that. Why? Because the gun control freaks and the people who are into controlling guns need to have the people call out for a regulation on this issue.
Exactly.
Then how do we correct this? How could this possibly happen? Well, here's how it could possibly happen. No one knows anything about this guy. Now, I'll tell you something about this guy. He was a very, very bright neurosurgeon, student, in very, very complex. He had access to the people who could program him. They were his teachers and mentors. He was in the middle of swimming with sharks. Okay? Darren, hold me over the break. I will.
But Tom's in Brooklyn. We're talking about this Colorado shooting that took place in the early hours yesterday morning. And Tom, go ahead and continue with your thoughts, please.
A few things here. This young fella, very bright academic type, would not have access to explosives and ordnance. You cannot buy them across the counter. They have to be supplied to you by a criminal organization or the government. You know, they're talking about mortar shells and C4. I don't know anybody that's ever bought that across the counter. And it's funny that the selection of guns are 40, which the feds carry, and 870s, which the feds carry, and AR-15s, which the feds carry. So maybe some of the gun walking happened right here in America. Another situation. Good point. Very well said. Another situation, Darren. How far is Aurora from Columbine? You know, when when the people start to investigate, don't look at the clown in the spotlight. Look at the peripherals. Okay? When you're looking at the peripherals, come up with a common denominator of what doctors had seen him, who had access to him, and what drugs was he taking. You know, every Schedule III drug has a DEA number on it, and if they were to see what drugs he was taking, they would be able to profile his actions. And number three, big number three is the common denominator in each and every one of these gun grabs is the United Nations. We need to get out of there. The United Nations has murdered more people in this country through their nonsense, okay? They are the enforcement and front people for the global government. And the bottom line here is they are murdering Americans at a very, everything from population to control to weather control to chemtrails, everything. Now take our guns away so we can't even revolt, you know?
Yep. Well,
that's
you know,
my view on that.
You're absolutely right, and I couldn't agree more. Nancy, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I absolutely agree with you. And, you know, the other interesting thing, Darren, is Aurora is a suburb of Denver, and people need to go look up the artwork in the Denver airport sometime.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, that is the most peculiar, creepy thing I have ever seen.
Well, that's their agenda.
What'd you say, Tom?
That's their agenda.
Yep, that's right. That's
I agree with you.
That's their agenda. Well, folks, don't buy into the hype, and remember something. If you have the herd mentality, you're going to scream out for more gun legislation. If you have the intellect and haven't been drinking their fluoridated water, you'll have the brain matter necessary to connect the dots. To anyone with two brain cells that match, this is quite transparent.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem is hopefully we're reaching out to people who've never heard any of this information before. Hopefully we're reaching more and more people all the time, new people. And all I can say is just stay tuned and continue to study these creatures. I don't even like to call them human, Tom.
One last thing before I jump out. Remember Klebold and Harris? They were wearing dark clothing too. So the government or their handlers dress them funny and send them out to do a horrid act.
Yeah, exactly.
Later, brother.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tom. I appreciate the call. All right, I'll tell you what, folks. So we got a short segment in the next hour, so I'll take George in Texas on this subject, and then that'll be our last call on the gun thing. I'm Darren Wiggs. Nancy Levan is here. And I just want to say, I don't know if you folks heard when we brought our board operator up in Texas. I just want to reiterate that he said that there were a number of eyewitnesses that were posting on a website called Reddit, which is basically it's a bulletin board website. They have a number of different topics and different things that they post on there. But there were a number of eyewitnesses that were talking about that, and they said that they had they were inside the theater, they witnessed somebody get up, open the door from inside. They were evidently sitting inside the movie theater. They got up, opened the door, and let the guy in. Now, this is what they said on the website Reddit, and that would be consistent with the initial reports that we got from the media, which now, as has been pointed out, they have changed the story. And so now they're saying he actually went through. But so what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, is it looks like my initial thought that the guy had an accomplice from inside is actually true, that the ticket was purchased by whoever that accomplice, they purchased the ticket for the accomplice. He was allowed in through the exit door, through the emergency exit, and that's when he went on a shooting spree. So we'll watch the story carefully in the coming days. and we'll see what develops out of this. We'll see what lies come to the surface as time develops. But